Dan Hunt said he was going to introduce Bob, but Mary said, no, you will. I was like, okay, what do I say about my brother, Bob? I could say a lot, but I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be really nice and very professional because I literally had to like, all right, so what does Bob actually do? Bob is co-owner of HRM LLC. And then we also have another Trellis as well is on there. So Trellis Hospitality. I'll let him explain the technicalities about that. Bob also attended the University of St. Thomas and is a CPA accountant. So a lot of his professional roles have incorporated his accounting, years and years of experience in that area. And then he became a controller. And then he somehow got into the hospitality business, and that it's been that way for years. My family, I come from a big family and 9 kids. We all love to support him, and to be honest, it's our delight. I mean, we win because these restaurants. I mean, when you'll see some pictures of the food, it's as good as it looks. I kid you not. But like when Dan and Jay and I were talking about speakers for this year, we thought at the time, it was like, wouldn't it be interesting to hear what it was like to run a restaurant throughout the pandemic? I mean, on, off, you have employees and you don't, and then now it's coming back, and how are things going? So Bob is here to kind of give us that view into his life and his role as owner of 5 going on 6 restaurants, I believe, or are we on to 7 yet? It's about right. He's got a lot on his plate, but I mean, he makes it look easy. He always shows up looking pretty good. I think he got a time for a shower today, so that's good. Yeah, and it's funny. So I think one little thing, I'm not going to say too much about Bob growing up, but the one thing about Bob is that his love of food started when he was young. So coming from a family, again, of 9 kids, we always ate buffet style. I don't remember ever sitting down, like some families, they pass the meal around and it's all nice and very delicate and a little parsley and whatever. No, we didn't. It was like a feeding trough. So you got there and you had your little plate and you stood in line every meal. Bob would always get there first. And he would always get some of the really good leftover stuff, and then it was gone. And we're like, oh my God. And so by the time we'd all be sitting down, Bob was going back for more. And my dad said, Bob, you just inhale food. And he did. But I mean, he was, again, I think it's just everybody's got that I don't know, love of something. And this was his food love. And, it doesn't show because he's super fit and in great shape and all that stuff. So, but anyways, I just had to let you guys know that. Love you, Bob. And thank you so much for being here today. Why don't you come up and explain the rest?
Thank you so much. Thanks, Margaret. Love you too. Really, when she invited me to come and speak to you today, I thought, I really don't speak in front of people very often, so why would you really want me? But when we talked about the restaurant industry and the pandemic, that's definitely a topic I know of. And I think part of the reason too I wanted to come is just seeing Margaret's passion for this Rotary. It's incredible. She loves you guys. She loves the Rotary, and that's contagious. So she's amazing. And so yeah, I jumped at the chance to come participate in something that she loves so much. And just has been a part of her life, and really she's made a part of our lives, just seeing her pictures and the way she shares all the things she's done through the Rotary. What a powerful community. I think I learned a lot about supporting each other too in this restaurant in the pandemic, and that when I look at the Rotary, and I look at one of the reasons you're here is to support each other. You support business, you support each other, and that means you support your community. And that's a great thing to do. And Edina is a leader. It's a community leader. It always has been, even since when Margaret and I grew up over by Lake Harriet. Went to St. Thomas the Apostle grade school, graduated from Southwest. We always looked at Edina as kind of the leading community. And just kind of driving in today, I was reflecting on, it still is. Edina still is the leading community in Minnesota, and I don't think it's really arguable. It's an incredible community and something to be so proud of. So just kind of go into this part. The reason I brought this slideshow is just to show you my restaurants, but I don't really want to spend too much time on it. I kind of want to talk a little bit more about what's going on in the industry and what restaurants especially restaurants in your own community, because it's all of us. We're all kind of in the same boat. Nobody has the same journey. And I also think that during the pandemic, nobody cornered the market on how painful it was, including restaurants. I'm sure each one of you could try to tell a story of survival through the pandemic, of questioning whether your businesses could survive or not. How are you going to get through this? Where are we going to be a year from now? Just all those questions. But I think the restaurant story's just got its own lane. It's unique. But we don't mean to say that we're the only industry that was affected adversely by the pandemic. I think it's really important to recognize it affected everyone in such a way that it's something we're going to look back at and say in history of time, I can't believe we lived through that. And just so grateful that we could live through this. So maybe I'll go through this part kind of quick, Mary, just introduce that we do have restaurants. Hospitality restaurants, we're kind of confusing. We have an umbrella company where actually we employ all of our general managers, our chefs, our sous chefs, a lot of our salary people. And then we kind of farm them out to the restaurants that we both own and operate. So in my case, I participate in the ownership of each restaurant, and then we also participate with the management company. Barley and Vine is our restaurant in Lakeville, Minnesota. This is a restaurant that's 1 mile from my house. We're the 4th restaurant to be in this facility, and I've always wanted to be part of it. As you can see from the inside, it's just kind of a gorgeous restaurant. It has a gorgeous patio, but it never succeeded. And we came in, it was always a kind of a high-end restaurant, and Lakeville was having trouble, supporting a high-end restaurant with enough traffic. So we lowered the price points. I would say by no means are we cheap, but we just lower the price points where we have things like hamburgers and flatbreads and sandwiches and pastas and kind of a wide variety that actually attracted a larger demographic. And now we've been there now for over 5 years and we're surviving. We have live entertainment on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. We have a beautiful patio and I think really creative artistic foods. We have just blessed to have a really creative team there that kind of keeps pumping it out. So that's Barley and Vine. That's in Lakeville. I think she did a lot of pictures. And then Jordan, Minnesota. I don't know if you guys know Jordan. It's on 169 heading down to Mankato. I don't know if you've been by the big candy store, Minnesota's largest candy store. We're about 1 mile closer to Jordan on the other side of the highway. It used to be called the OK Corral. It's owned by Dick Ames from Ames Construction. He built this restaurant and then hired our company to run it. And Mr. Ames did pass away about 2 years ago. But if anyone's ever known him, he was a great man. He was known for all his giving to different communities. Ames Center in Burnsville, Ames Hockey Arena in Lakeville, over 30 different communities in the state of Minnesota benefited from the Ames generosity. He built this restaurant because he wanted the city of Jordan to have a restaurant. So it's a supper club on Thursday and Friday nights. One side of the restaurant has kind of the mustard booths, the hardwood floors, more traditional supper club. And then it has a larger kind of bar area that we call the tap room. And that's open 7 days a week. That leads to an outdoor patio and has 2 outdoor volleyball courts. It's just kind of a fun trip if you want to come down, possibly for apple orchard, candy store, Jordan, walk through the small town of Jordan. They got some nice boutique shops there. Great meat market that's been there since the early 1900s. Just a fun outing to do if you want to do something a little different. And then come stop into us. We do not serve lunch Monday through Friday. We just have lunch on Saturdays, brunch on Sundays, and then we're open 7 days a week for dinner. And then there's more pictures. Steel and Hops. This is our new restaurant. We were supposed to open this restaurant in March of 2020. We took possession. We signed a lease with kind of a large leasing company. This is on Silver Lake Road, up where it used to be called the Apache Mall. Now it's called like the Shops of St. Anthony. It was a former Applebee's, and we had come up with the idea to convert it into a restaurant. We had demoed it when the governor announced that restaurants would be shut down. So we stopped and just sat there, looked at the landlord. They looked at us and said, what are we going to do? Well, we just postponed. And through conversations over a year's time, we finally decided to reopen it. We're hoping to open it at the end of May here, maybe the first week in June. And it'll just be called Steel and Hops. And this is just a picture. It's kind of in construction. We just kind of got the booths in. The bar's being formed. I think it's gonna be kind of a fun concept, fun for that community. Tamarack Tap Room. It's by far our largest restaurant. That's in Woodbury, Minnesota. That's on Radio Drive. It used to be Champs, a huge restaurant, huge footprint. Kind of in the days when you weren't supposed to be buying big footprints. I just couldn't deny the location. This is a Class A site. There's just Class A written all over it. Honestly, the owner was in a little bit of trouble. We kind of worked out a deal that I thought kind of the front end was really favorable to him. He never thought so. But then on the back end, we had a right to purchase it for a set purchase price, which ended up kind of teeter-tottering it back to it being a really good deal for our investment group. So we did buy the land and building about 1.5 years ago. And it's just a really fun restaurant. It has 71 different taps of craft beers online. So you can get just about any craft beer you want or really want to explore craft beers and all of our local breweries in town. We have a great line of beers there. Also does a lot of smoked meats. This guy, that Chef Justin, loves to smoke brisket. If you've ever heard of the product Burnt Ends is kind of from Kansas City mostly, but it's the end of the brisket. So he serves smoked brisket. He saves the ends for the weekend, and on Friday and Saturdays, he slowly bakes those in a light barbecue sauce for up to 8 hours, and then he puts them over French fries. It's really, really good. Not good for you, but it's really good. And this is our longest restaurant standing, Woolies. I started in this company in 1986 when we opened Woolies. So way back in the Embassy Suites over in Bloomington off of 34th Avenue. Woolies, we do all the food service in that Embassy Suites. Woolies has been the hardest hit of our restaurant operations. Traditionally, over the last 30 years, it's been the strongest restaurant operation we've had financially and profitability wise. But the hotel business, weddings, catering, probably a lot like the Edina Country Club, just not getting the events for over a year, just devastated that business that we're just kind of slowly coming back into it right now. Kind of worked with our landlords and kind of made this all work, but we do all the food service in that Embassy Suite, from room service, bar, restaurant, to all the catering. This is a renovated bar. We kind of renovated it the year before too. So, and then kind of a renovated Embassy Suites. If you haven't been over to the Embassy Suites by the airport there, it's kind of fun to go through there. If you probably, it's been there so long, probably most of you have probably at least had something there over all the years. And it's kind of fun to re-see it now that's all been renovated and redone to look a little bit more contemporary. That kind of takes us back to Trellis. So that's our organization. Again, I didn't want to spend a lot of time on that. Kind of wanted to talk about the pandemic and what we went through to get to where we are here today. Really what Margaret said. And I think you can relate this story to your favorite restaurants, you know, the restaurants here in Edina and what they're going through. I know some of the restaurants here in Edina. I've had an opportunity to work with Anne Spaeth over at Lynn Hall over in the Galleria there, or not Galleria, but in 50th in France, just going back and forth. Like Margaret said, my background's financial and accounting. To get through the pandemic, you had to fill out applications. You had to understand how to fill out these applications. What do they mean? Try to do it right. And the average life of a restaurateur, that's a little different than mine, where, you know, we can have 4 or 5 operations and I can charge out my salary to them where they can afford someone like me to just do financial work, accounting, finance. We can have a director of marketing. We can have a director of operations, where pretty much what I'll call ma and pa are just family owned businesses. They get up in the morning, they open their shop, they survive the day, and they turn the lights off as they go home. And what they found overwhelming, I had 2 friends organize a group of about 35 restaurant owners back in March of 2020 that we thought we would talk by Zoom and just try to see if we could support each other. Really similar to what this Rotary does. You just support each other and see if we could help each other. And I found out just how difficult it was for people to feel like they should fill out the PPP loan application. Where when I filled it out, I knew right away every restaurateur should have filled out that PPP loan application. You needed to get this to survive, and trying to figure out how to do that. Where people that felt overwhelmed were saying, I don't have any time. I can't do it. I'm just trying to figure out how to run this business every day. And so to try to help people get through those applications, to get the help that we so badly needed. So just going back to the beginning of the pandemic, that group had just met for the first time on March 16th. If you remember, the governor put the announcement that afternoon, the 16th, that all restaurants and bars would close on March 17th. And when he said close, it was 100% across the board. You're just closed. And I remember thinking in that meeting, I should probably run back to my office to see how much cash we have in the bank account, because this is shocking. Like starting tomorrow, there's no income coming in. So like many businesses, we laid off 100% of our employees, including ourselves, just because tomorrow no money was coming in. There was no idea of when you would reopen and have money again, or how this was all going to work. It was just a scary time. And again, probably for many of you in this room, just a really scary time of where are we going? How bad is this going to be? And just kind of trying to figure out a way to get through that. Through our group, we really started organizing and talking to each other and trying to find ways to support each other. You know, the question was always going to be, you know, would, you know, the government recognize the restaurant industry as something that was critical? You know, you kind of think of restaurants. Yeah, it's fun. You got to go out and have drinks, food. But how important is it really to the economy? How important is it really to our society? You know, whether you want to just look at it financially, how important is it that we buy from maybe even a small restaurant might buy products from 40 different vendors or services, to hiring of employees, state sales tax, state payroll taxes, all the things, and just how many restaurants there are. You know, there's no argument that it's critical economically for our economy for restaurants to be open and operating. You can't just close all restaurants and expect our economy to continue on. But then there's also the social aspect. Where are some of your favorite moments? Where have been some of the most dearest times in your family? It probably got centered around, you know, whether you got married or anniversaries or birthdays or just going out with friends. Maybe some of your best times in your life were associated with time spent at a restaurant. You know, it could be Bob up at your cabin, probably a family-run bar restaurant. It's not fancy, but it's home. You know, they know your name. You come in, and we found out that, I think, loud and clear, that people need that. You need to go socialize. You need to be part of something where you see people and are seen, and being part of that community aspect of restaurants are so important. And I guess the one thing I want to communicate today is that it really came back loud and clear. The government heard that. And where maybe the very first PPP loan had some difficulties in the language and the content, they got it right after a few reiterations of that. Margaret and I have a brother that works for the American Banking Association in Washington, D.C., and he was really involved with how these packages were going to come out from the SBA. And he was telling me that, yeah, the House and the Senate, they appropriate the funds. But then they just say, here's, you know, $350 billion, create a program that's going to help small business, to the SBA. And then you got a group of people in a room going, okay, we got $320 billion. What do you want to do? How does this work? How do we make this so we can get it out quick and easy and fast, and yet have some counterbalances so that, you know, people aren't taking advantage of this program inappropriately? And I think they decided to err on the side of just getting it out fast and easy. And I think I don't know how many people in this room applied for a PPP loan. You know, did you have industries or businesses that had to get one? We got online. We filled out an application that, for, you know, all practical purposes, took about 20 minutes for an application, and you submitted it. 2 weeks later, got money in our account. And the very first one was, it was going to be a forgivable loan if you spent, you know, X% on payroll, but it gave us a chance to catch up on our rent, utilities, stuff that was really bothering us restaurant owners. It gave us a chance to hire back some people to start up our takeout business. You know, we didn't have takeout at my restaurants. We didn't have pickup or to go. So we had to kind of create a new business model with some of our employees to do that. But I wouldn't have done that if we didn't have help, because I would have said, we're just going to lose more money. You know, this money's got to come from somewhere. And at that point, it would have come just from investors' pockets. And for investors to just continue to fund something when you can't tell them there's an end date, it's just not feasible. They're not going to do that. It's a difficult situation. So to have this money allowed us to do this, which ended up being really good, because we started developing some momentum. We got the restaurant doors open. There was a fear. I remember the first time we walked into the restaurant, you kind of looked around like, is there virus everywhere? Is it on the surfaces? What's going on? You know, we mask up, we're sanitizing, we're doing all that stuff, but there's just a fear of coming back to work. And then working with coworkers, starting to work on this takeout and delivery, having some frustrations getting it started, but we did get it started. They did fix the first round of the PPP loan, And I can tell you from everyone I knew, there was like 35 business owners in my restaurant association that joined this Zoom group we started. Every one of them would say that the first round of the PPP was life-saving for their business. It was everything. And the government responded, either side of the aisle. They responded by getting out a package that people can say wasn't perfect, but it saved us. It saved my businesses and saved everything else that I value so much. From there, we did get the EID, the EIDL loan, I guess I call it. We qualified for that. It was another $150,000. We pay that back, but it was a 30-year loan. So with a 3.75% interest rate. So that made the monthly payments really low for the amount of money you got. We could get up to $150,000 per entity. Again, life-saving cash flow. And that allowed us to get into the summer where restrictions were lifted enough to have outdoor business. So now if you're fortunate or not, I was very fortunate. We had big patios in Tamarack. We have big patios at Barley and Vine in Jordan. We created a tent at Woolies. And I think you probably saw all your entrepreneurs, all your small businesses, all your restaurants find out a way to get tables and chairs outside to get more business in. People were really creating business models on the fly. Kind of just showed a lot of how people would get together and kind of figure out some way to generate more revenues for their business. And there was a lot of creativity out there. And I think I saw quite a bit of it here in Edina too, where people just kind of found a way. And cities were working with us, city managers. There were grants from cities. There were grants from counties. There was a grant from the state of Minnesota. All these grants, whether it was 10,000, 15,000, 25,000, again, really helped our cash flow that you didn't know how you're going to get through the next day, but then there was always this Band-Aid. Oh, I got a little Band-Aid. Oh, I got a little Band-Aid. I got a little Band-Aid. Pretty soon I'm feeling better. And then in December, when we had the second shutdown, and then Congress and the Senate came back and said, hey, we're going to do another round of PPP. And in that second CARES Act, they also passed a different definition that allowed restaurants to take advantage of the Employment Retention Credit. And that's an acronym ERC. Previous to this change, we could not take advantage of this credit. But after the CARES Act passed, it allowed most restaurants to qualify for the Employee Retention Credit. That was a credit up to on $10,000 of an employee's wages. You could earn back 50% of their wages, so up to $5,000 per employee. Tremendous credit. So again, we found another cash flow source almost at the right time to get us through that second shutdown. And then we got the second round PPP. So here's the truth, at least from my organization. The second round of PPP is almost getting to the point where you'd almost say, that's almost too much. Just gonna be completely honest. And that's not all restaurants. So please don't take my situation. I know restaurants that are in downtown Minneapolis. I am an investor in a restaurant in downtown Minneapolis called PS Steak. And just with them dealing with different set of issues from social unrest, those restaurants are recovering at a different pace than some of the restaurants out here in the suburbs are. So just kind of take that in consideration. Or if you're in New York City, or if you're in Chicago, or if you're in Los Angeles. So how do you make a program that's fair to everyone? But for our restaurants, when we're open and we're running again, that's up to us to cash flow. It's kind of putting that onus back on the business owner to say, I can stand up on my own 2 feet now. And you fight for your profit margins, you fight to survive. Where the second one, I would say one thing it does, where I was said, if we didn't get the second round PPP, it'd probably take us 5 years to get back to what I call normal. The second round of PPP kind of says, oh, you're getting closer to normal really quick, or much more healthy quick. So I still think that's a strength in the industry. But if you're really wondering, I think the question was answered. The government said restaurants in this industry are super important to our economy and we're going to help them. And I think it's difficult for them to get a meter on that, to read on that. I did meet with our local SBA director. His name is Brian McDonald. If you ever get a chance, it kind of reminds me, Margaret, of your passion with the Rotary. This guy, Brian McDonald, with the local SBA, he has a passion to help small business owners. All I can tell you is it's like a calling. And he and his wife came from out east. He's fairly young. And I called him once because I was kind of upset about the first round of the PPP, about the rules, and I didn't know what to do. So I just called him, and he picks up his phone. And I thought, this is weird. I'm like talking to this guy. And I said, so do people really call you? He goes, not so much. So I go, so you're just like talking to me. And he offered to me and anyone in our restaurant association, if they needed help with an application, if they got denied for some reason they didn't understand, he would take care of them. And every single restaurateur I sent his way, he personally reached out to them, understood their problem, and then assigned it to the right person in his staff. He is passionate about helping small businesses. One of his biggest struggles was getting restaurants to take this because they were kind of, yeah, right, forgivable loan. That doesn't exist. You know, you guys are going to trick us. This is going to be bad. I'm just going to be in more debt. You know, you're going to, instead of throwing me, you know, a lifeline, you're going to throw me an anchor and I'm going to sink faster. And just trying to convince people that this program really was in their best interest was harder than you thought. What if they speak a different language? What if they just can't lift their head up and read online about these programs or fill out the application? They're afraid to pay a CPA like $5,000 to do some of the stuff for them. CPAs were charging, and nothing against CPAs, believe me, I like CPAs, but they're charging to do this. And they're afraid to spend that money if they thought it wasn't get them the return that they wanted. All those fears. And he went out in the community and he started holding roundtables with small business owners to tell them that this was a good program and use testimonials from other business owners. So our local chapter of SBA and Brian McDonald, he in his office, instrumental in getting us the help that we needed. So that's kind of our progression, is that we went from not seeing a path forward in March of 2020 and kind of thinking maybe this is going to be it. Okay, that maybe this is going to be it, to today where I'm looking at you and, you know, Margaret said, this weekend, I think I bust dishes for probably 16 hours at our different restaurants, just because of the volume of people coming into the restaurants. Really the mask mandate being lifted kind of turned a corner between the vaccinations, the mask mandate lifting, where I'm seeing people almost equally comfortable eating inside or on our patio outside, to the point where now we probably have more volume than we have employees. So I think our next challenge, and believe me, compared to what we've been through, is just finding employees now. You know, I had a chance to sit with Tina Smith, and just she kind of asked us our questions about what do you need? I said, well, I understand that families need this extra unemployment, because how do you be parents with kids at home and you're doing homeschool? So eventually you kind of say someone's got to leave their job and just stay home. So it's really supporting families, and a lot of our employees are doing that. But also there's a percentage of people that are staying home on unemployment because they don't have to work. And they just think it's a fair trade-off and they enjoy it. So I'm kind of looking forward when we can find a balance of kind of maybe stopping the extra $300 and get back on our own 2 feet and say that schools are open again, and see if we can get that employment force back. Because I think that's almost everyone's biggest challenge right now, is we can't find the people to work. We're not finding servers. We're not finding cooks. We're not finding hosts and bartenders, where that used to never be a problem. And people are coming back in droves. So if you go to a restaurant, so my last thing I'll say, add that little bit extra tip means a big deal. That's huge support. If that restaurant's having a bad day, give them a break. You know, they could be overwhelmed. They just might not have the help. And so if they're having a bad day, just to say, it's okay, I get it. You know, we had a situation in Jordan on Mother's Day where some people were waiting 1 hour to get their meal. And you just look at them and go, I'm so sorry. But we had 30 tickets up in the window, and the cooks were taking them ticket at a time, going as fast as they can. It was just such volume that we couldn't support it. And so every restaurant has those moments. And if you could just give them a break, I know it'd be greatly appreciated by them and the owners and the servers. So that's all I have. That's the restaurant business. I really do appreciate being here. I thank Edina Country Club. Great breakfast. I thank all of you for coming today. And for everyone on Zoom, I appreciate your time and listening to my story. Do you want any questions? Okay, yeah. If anybody has questions. That's a great question. Yeah, so the question is, what's the average take-home pay for a server? This is the next question that's coming up in our industry, and it was happening before the pandemic. You know, the $15 an hour minimum wage. Just so you know, most restaurateurs will support that, but we would like to have some form of a tip credit, or we need some leveling of the playing field. So I can have servers that easily make $35 to $40 an hour, easy. So for them to get a $5 an hour wage increase, where we have cooks, dishwashers, bussers, food runners, expo, bartenders, hosts, a server serves the table, and they're definitely the face of your restaurant for that moment and touching the customer, and they're so important. But they can't take a section of 5 or 6 tables unless they have someone running the food at their table, unless they have bartenders making drinks for them. It still takes a collective group to make this work. So it's a little bit of an unfair playing field where they get the majority of all the income, which I'm not mad about it, but if you're going to increase wages to $15 an hour, somehow we have to kind of figure out what we're going to do with tips and in this massive pool of income that's coming in that's maybe disproportionate to what everyone's doing at that restaurant. And we're definitely talking about that. So servers and bartenders can make, honestly, part-time work, you can make $50,000 to $70,000 a year.
Do you see any inflation in your cost of goods?
So that's then, do we see any inflation or cost of goods? Great question again. Right now, no. What we've seen is the supply chain has been upset. When you go back to March, I can just give one example. Reinhardt is our food distributor. On the day that we got closed down, they had a little over $1 million just of produce in their cooler. That was their average day rotation, was about $1 million a day of produce. That's just one distributor in one city. That's just one. And it got thrown away. On top of that, all the people, all the farmers that have chickens, cows, they didn't know how long the pandemic was going to go, and they couldn't afford to feed their chickens. They couldn't afford to continue to feed them. So there was a mass slaughters that went on that basically got buried. And now you go a year from then, and you're back into saying, hey, I want chicken wings. There's no chickens. We're struggling to get chicken wings. We're struggling to get products. So it's more of a supply chain issue than inflation. We are not seeing inflation right now, where I think is contrary to our normal beliefs of economics, is that if you continue to funnel so much money into our economy, we should have inflation. We're not seeing that right now, but I'm worried about it. Excuse me.
I'm wondering about potential hangover, wondering how big a role landlords might have played in concessions. I know it varies by restaurant, but you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so the question is, what role did landlords play as far as concessions go? I think right in March of 2020, they all said, let's just sit tight. Let's just figure out what's going on and what we can do. But really, they could only do that for 1 or 2 months. And then they came back to us and said, so here's my issue. I've got a mortgage on this place. I have 10 other places and no one's paying me anything. And you can kind of quickly say that they were in the same park we're in, they're the same troubles. And we found out that we had to pay landlords too. Even though you could say, well, if you kick me out, who are you going to put in here, right? Excuse me. It's just, I liked the program with the PPP because it did allow us to use it for rent and utilities. That allowed us to catch up with our landlords. I think it was one of those situations where kind of look at landlords as the big guy who they're kind of like this evil neighbor, but they're not. They're our business partner, and they needed to get paid too. So I kind of felt bad for the landlords too. I think they get kind of a bad rap. So they played a big part at initially give us a break, but we had to shore it up and kind of solidify their position. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Margaret.
Sorry. Okay, thank you, Bob. That was just amazing. Thank you so much. And I've seen lots of comments online from the Zoomers thanking you for everything. It was really, really interesting. And I thought it would be, but you nailed it. So thank you so much. That's it, you guys. What a great meeting. Thank you so much. Lots more coming up in the next month or so. So please pay attention, put some dates down on your calendar. And let me know too, like I said before, if you have any questions, get a hold of myself or Mary about signing up or whatever. So please let us know. So, oh, we do. Yes.
Zimmerman has been with us through the meeting this morning.
I know Dorothy.
Okay.
Hi, Dorothy. Can you unmute yourself and say hello? Dorothy is a family member
Good morning.
related to Bob and myself now. So yeah, today was family day for the Roses, huh?
I didn't want to see myself on full screen here. It was marvelous. I'm glad I missed the first 10 minutes, but hey, it was just great. I can't wait to see you and get back to visiting some of Bob's restaurants. I love the one in Jordan. Can't wait to go back.
Yeah, Dorothy's been out at Jordan it's great food, isn't it? Doesn't it just,
Yes, it is. Great
yes,
food, entertainment, and love the family feeling. It's just you're just welcome the minute you walk in the door.
yes.
So thank you so
Thank
much.
you for, thank you for zooming in, Dorothy. Good to see you.
Bye bye.
Bye. Oh, sorry, that's very loud. All right, you guys, go out and have a great week. Remember, Rotary opens opportunities. Thank you so much.